name is Dora,
Welcome, everybody, to Two Yogis Talk About Life. I'm Jen.
and today we have a special guest with us, Jessica Hagy. Jessica is a licensed certified social worker, clinical, and provides holistic healing sessions for stress and trauma through her business, Your Calm Center. Drawing from extensive experience as a trauma-informed therapist, certified iRest meditation teacher, master Reiki practitioner, and restorative yoga teacher, she specializes in guiding others in the process of regulating the nervous systems, understanding the impacts of relational trauma, and connecting with internal and external resources of calm and healing. Jessica offers wellness sessions for individuals, couples, and groups in the wellness space at Seaside Counseling and Wellness Center in Berlin, Maryland, online and on site at various community organizations and businesses. So welcome, Jess. So nice to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's so great to see you both, such good friends, and to be able to talk about iRest, something that we all love and share a passion for.
I'm so grateful. It feels just like how we get together, twice a month sometimes, for the last 5 years. And, during that time, you've transitioned from more traditional therapy to more holistic services. So I'm wondering if you could just share a bit more about that transition.
I would love to. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been quite a journey since I started iRest and also since I started doing mental health therapy. And when I started mental health therapy, I was integrating mindfulness techniques that I'd learned from mindfulness-based stress reduction training. And I was wanting to incorporate more yoga. And someone introduced me to Yoga Nidra. And it was completely new. And I was not able to take any local classes, but I drove a few hours in order to take some in-person classes. And then I ended up seeking out some more information, and I found iRest Yoga Nidra, which really seemed to fit so well with what I was already doing. I was already working with a lot of people who'd experienced trauma. And I was also already finding that there was something missing in talk therapy, in the traditional approach. So everything just kind of aligned at the right time for me on this journey. And iRest, I just loved how there was so much research behind it. There was so much evidence to the benefits for people with so many different mental health conditions, including anxiety, depression, trauma, sleep problems, substance use. And then when I was able to experience it for myself after listening to some recordings of Richard Miller in person during the level 1 training, it was so nourishing and it was so healing for me on so many levels. It helped me to connect with my own body so much more deeply than any of the other yoga or mindfulness practices that I'd already done, which I believe were essential. They were foundational and helped open the door so that iRest really met me exactly where I was and helped me to experience this embodied being, being in a body so much more deeply. So I immediately wanted to share it with my clients. I immediately wanted to share it with my community. And I started offering classes to people at a local yoga studio. And then, probably within a couple of months after my level 1 training, I created a group at the clinic that I was working in, mostly working with people who had experienced trauma on some level. And so we bought all the mats and blankets, and we had beanbag pillows, the really big ones. And so people could really be cozy, comfortable, and supported as we went through the iRest practice with them. And more and more along the way, I just found where iRest was meeting people at a level talk therapy couldn't. And I had therapists referring their clients to me so that they could continue with talk therapy with them and then also do iRest Yoga Nidra with me. And the combination was so powerful. So along the way, I just determined that, there's enough people doing talk therapy and we need more of the embodied somatic practices to help people heal. And that's what I really felt called to do. So I decided to make the move into fully embracing more energy and somatic healing techniques like iRest, Reiki, restorative yoga. And yeah, I love it. I can offer this to all people, whether it's a group where I do sessions with people to go through together and have support, or individual sessions in person or online. So they can really feel and experience for themselves the integration of whatever therapeutic techniques they've already used and these, particularly iRest.
So during our recent gathering, you mentioned that you're, feeling called to work with relational trauma. And so I was wondering if you could perhaps speak a little bit about that. What is relational trauma, and what brought you to this work, and how might you be working with people in this area?
Yes, relational trauma is something that I've been really feeling called more and more toward. I've had so many clients that I've worked with along the way who have really intense experiences with what we'll call relational trauma or complex trauma. And some of the components that make that different from other forms of trauma, such as maybe being in a car accident or a natural disaster, um, maybe a one-time trauma or something that's not directly related to an intimate relationship, is that it impacts the person's ability to be in relationship with themselves and other people. So it could be intimate partner violence, it could be childhood abuse, it could be a hostage experience. There's many different types of relational trauma. And some of the commonalities are that, again, there's a real difficulty in trusting people and a disconnect from themselves and their bodies. So, not having this experience of understanding and feeling what the body's messages are, could be just simply hunger, could be emotions like sadness. And so there's a disconnect there. And there's also a sense of feeling, because of being victimized and not having choice in that traumatic experience, there's a disempowerment that comes along with it, where there's a difficulty making choices, feeling empowered to make choices in their own lives, to know who they are and what they want to do with their lives, to be in connection with their purpose, sense of meaning, and to be able to take effective actions in life in general, in that regard, to create the lives that they want to have. Then, of course, there's also nervous system regulation, dysregulation, and so many impacts on the brain that complex trauma has. So iRest is one of the modalities that I've found, in addition to restorative yoga and trauma sensitive and other trauma informed yoga practices, and also Reiki, that really help regulate the nervous system, help kind of reorder and heal parts of the brain and the brain body connection, the mind body connection that support overall healing and a return to wholeness.
So, in talking about how iRest is involved, especially with working in relational trauma, are there any particular sort of aspects in iRest that's really supported people you work with that you find in particular you like to go to sort of bring them to some healing or provide some therapy with them?
Mm-hmm. Yes, because of the lack of feeling safe within themselves, like they're walking around the world feeling unsafe most of the time within their own bodies, misreading signals, or the activation is happening from trauma triggers, exaggerated startle response, things like that. There's this real need for cultivating a sense of feeling safe within themselves. And we can't always jump to the word safe because they're not feeling safe wherever they are. But we can start with a sense of maybe steadiness, inner steadiness, or ease, or okayness, and really helping them to cultivate that within themselves so that they're not feeling so activated, and they can feel more empowered to know that the sense of feeling okay doesn't come from anywhere outside of us. And it's so frequent that I see people turning towards things like alcohol for comfort, or overworking to not feel the discomfort, or shopping or eating, like turning towards these things outside of themselves to feel okay inside. And of course, it never works. It never really fully, they never feel okay fully within themselves, never feel whole. So I work with the inner resource a lot in the beginning, and as well as setting an intention. What do you really want for yourself? And what is your heart really calling for you to connect with right now? And then sensing the body and sensing the breath and opening to this place of just really feeling okay and more connected. So, of all the stages of iRest, the inner resource is probably the one that I really use as a foundational tool with them. With everyone, really, that comes to me in the beginning.
So, I love how you explained how you work with some of your clients and how you bring iRest into your practice. But more personally, could you perhaps share how you interweave the practice of iRest in your relationships, say, for example, with your partner or with your children or family members or friends or in your community?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for asking that. I get to really listen and talk with a lot of clients, and I share my experience with them because it's helpful. I don't always get to talk as much about my experience because that's not what we're there for. But of course, I'm always, they can tell, and I tell them too, how impactful iRest has been for me. In my daily life, it's so centering. It's so grounding. It helps me to live more in the present moment and to notice when I'm not, to notice when my emotions are shifting, or when I'm feeling a little dysregulation or a lot of dysregulation. Before iRest, I had my own experiences with relational trauma, and I had my own experiences with turning outward to seek comfort and regulation. And as I said, those efforts never, they were futile. They really only exaggerated my sense of disconnection with myself and my lack of understanding of what my body was telling me, what my heart was telling me. And now I really truly feel a sense of peace and groundedness underneath the surface all the time. There's definitely a time when I couldn't even imagine that. I could never have imagined that. And now, even if I can't fully connect with it, which most of the time now I can, but even if it feels a little more distant, farther away, I know it's there still. I know it's there. That's probably the biggest gift I could have ever asked for from iRest. And just in general, this sense of I am a whole person. I'm not broken. I'm not damaged. I don't need another person or thing to give me that sense of feeling complete. So my relationships are completely different because I'm not looking to any of them for validation or this sense of being okay. We can have conflict, we can have disagreements, we can have different feelings, and let each other have them. I can hold space for them, for anyone to have their own feelings. And I know that that's not about me, but I can be in my own body, in my own space with them.
There's such beautiful, so just sharing, how your personal experience, it really just, I think, helps other people make it more real for us. I'm wondering if there might be some tips, perhaps, maybe for other therapists who are maybe new to iRest, maybe thinking of how they might be able to use iRest to support them as therapists, maybe professionally or even personally. Do you have any suggestions for people maybe in a similar situation?
I mean, if it's a therapist who is already trained in iRest, is that what you're asking?
Just perhaps maybe if it's a therapist who might be in your situation trying to use alternative modalities, specifically maybe iRest, or even someone, because you hold a lot of space for people, especially I think being a therapist. And is there any tips that iRest might be useful for them as they for their own caregiving and self compassion, perhaps?
Hmm. That's really coming to me is practice. Have your own practice. And when we practice iRest, it does what it does for us. And we have this ability to just be with people in a whole new way, to be, as we often call it, the sacred mirror, to just reflect back to one another our essential wholeness. And there's this opening that has happened for me where I trust in the support of life and of the relationship, and that the intuition that comes is so much more reliable or the intuition, the interpretation of the intuition, I guess, or the reception of the intuition is so much stronger, clearer. And it takes a lot of pressure off if you're a therapist who thinks you have to have all the answers. Or, especially maybe a newer therapist who is thinking they need to have, solutions for people. And we're not here to solve anyone's problems. We're really to support them on their own journey of connecting with themselves and their own inner truth and inner guidance. So we have a lot of tools we can share, a lot of support we can offer, a lot of guidance. And all of that for me is always about really connecting the person back with themselves, trusting in themselves, knowing how to self-regulate, knowing how to move through life in a way that feels more whole and more genuine, and to have more joy. So the more I practice for myself, I'm living a more embodied and whole life. And that just comes across to people, and they feel like they can too. When I'm okay, they know that they can be okay, and that their feelings aren't too big for me, their experiences aren't too much for me. And that means that they don't need to be too much for themselves, and they can hold space for themselves at the same time. Does that answer your question?
Thank you so much for that. And we just want to make sure that people can find you. So, do you want to share perhaps what's the best way for people to find you, maybe for your groups or for individual?
Yes. Yeah, it's really pretty simple. Just yourcalmcenter.com, www.yourcalmcenter.com. And either way, I'll get you there. And you can check out more information, learn more about what I do. Under the offerings tab, you can see whatever groups and sessions, individual sessions I'm offering at the time. I have some social media, but really the most reliable would be just go straight to my website, and that's where we can connect.
Well, thank you so much, Jess, for taking your time and speaking with us. I'm sure our listeners have learned so much about how iRest can be so beneficial and in a therapy setting as well. And so hopefully some therapists that may be listening can maybe learn more also as to how they can integrate more holistic modalities or maybe even iRest into their practices as well. So thank you so much, Jess. Such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Such a pleasure to see you always.